Okay, it's connecting and recording here. So, Michael, we've just had a chat, and I want to say hey and welcome again. Welcome back to the show, and viewer on YouTube, welcome to what proves to be another scintillating episode of Behind the Scenes of Connection Over Coffee with the Live Sky. We're just about to press record. Michael, you've got your coffee.
No, I actually finished my coffee.
All right.
And now I'm down to my water.
Well, this is the shortest podcast episode ever. Connection over an empty coffee mug. I have a full coffee mug. I'd show you, but I tip it everywhere. And stuff. But I have to say I'm very envious of your Le Creuset cups.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
It keeps it really warm, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah, very fancy. And, you know, you can take it straight from the oven to the table, you know. It's
because I make my coffee in the oven.
Look, I don't know how you do it in Canada. Probably do that with a bear claw and beaver tails and...
Bacon, maple syrup.
Bacon, maple syrup. That's like, thank you, Canada. On behalf of a grateful world, thank you for the flavor combination that is bacon and maple syrup. That's the best. However, we need to talk about ketchup flavored chips.
Oh, so good. So good. That's fine. More for us. Yeah. You don't want them? Send them over.
No, we don't get them. We don't get them here. No, there's something purely unique to the North. So if you send those, I'm going to send you Vegemite flavored shapes over. So
how about we just agree? You keep yours over there, I'll keep mine over here, and we'll both be happy.
I will agree with you if you also cede that Australian cuisine is like the best ever. So thanks. Silence is passive complicity, and you agree with that. So let's...
We'll revisit that another time.
Will we though? Because it's been settled. Why revisit it?
I'm going to reopen it.
Nobody likes a revisionist. So yeah, this is a sort of turning into a Commonwealth podcast of everything that we sort of fight and bicker over as much as Australians and Canadians ever fight and bicker with each other. I know. So this, how do I bring this back? How do I bring it back to like, something that, we're still talking, at least for the rest of the episode?
Well, we all like to have sex, so we have that in common.
There we go. All right. Well done. Well salvaged. Well salvaged. All right. So let me press go on this. And so you're good?
Yep.
Viewer, you're good? Again, silence is passive complicity, so you're good. Am I good? I am. All right. So I'm pressing record on this now. And it just did something that I've not seen it do before. So that's all right. Can you just count to 10 in German, please? So I can just check your sound.
Nope. 1, 2.
Yeah, you're good.
3.
Yeah.
4. 5. I just did a whole melange of languages there.
Yeah. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. Well done on auf Deutsch. All right. I'm about to start. All right, so don't distract me.
Okay.
Viewer, don't you distract me either. All right. Okay. Hey, welcome to Connection Over Coffee with me, Phil McAuliffe, the Loneliness Guy. Today we're going to have another fantastic chat with Michael DiIorio from Wellismo Coaching about connection and casual sex. Say hi, Michael.
Hi, everybody. I'm back.
Yeah. No, you're only meant to say hi.
Oh, hi.
No. This podcast is all about destigmatizing loneliness and promoting authentic connection for gay men globally. It contains content relating to the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of gay men. If that's going to offend you or anyone in earshot, now's the time for you to move on. So with all of that said, how about you and Michael go get us a table and I'll go buy us some coffees.
Hello, viewers and listeners. Welcome to Connection Over Coffee. I feel like I'm taking over Phil's podcast for this brief moment.
You know, this is going to be edited out, so, you know, go crazy.
Okay. It's my podcast now.
I know, you know, cue evil laughter. All right. Here you go. If this is the first time you've connected over coffee with me and Michael, welcome. I recognize that loneliness is not necessarily a topic that you go searching for on social media or on podcasts. So I recognize that you may have just taken a huge step in engaging with the thoughts and feelings that you might actually be a gay man who's experiencing some loneliness. This is a big step, and I want to recognize that, and I want to say how proud I am of you. Before we get into our chat with Michael, I do want to say one thing, that a like, a comment, a share, if you think that this episode or previous episodes are really doing it for you and speaking to you, a like, a comment and share on social media or, you know, with your friends or whatever really helps get the message out that we're not alone in our loneliness as gay men. And frankly, it helps appease the social media gods and helps my work, it helps Michael's work reach more people, reach more gay men to know that they're not alone and that there is help available. So like, comment, share, do whatever, you know, the cool kids do now on social media. That really, really, really helps. Only if you get some really good, if this or previous episodes have been really helpful for you. And if there is something that you think that I can improve on or questions that you'd like to ask, please let me know so I can weave that into future episodes. So, Michael, welcome back. This is the second time
Thank you.
You've been on the podcast.
Thank you. I love being back. It's so nice to be here with you, enjoying my coffee.
Yeah. I think you've just finished the coffee, haven't you?
Yeah, but I still have the mug, and that's the important part.
That is. So, Michael, this is a we're going to just jump straight into it because we don't we know you, and if the listener, you know, wants to know more about you, they can go back to, I think it's episode 7 where we first had a chat with you and talking about your story a little. But you and I, we work together, and I am super pleased and super happy that we do, because we have a very similar world view and a view on the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of gay men. So this conversation obviously is on connection and casual sex.
Yes.
And I imagine that this is going to be a chat that the listener is really wanting to get your thoughts on. So I'm just going to jump straight in. Can we have our human need for connection satisfied through casual sex as gay men?
Well, I'll give you the short answer that's not going to please anybody. And it depends. So,
pause. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this though. How do you want to define connection?
Well, I think connection for me and my work here at the Loneliness Guy is all about authentic connection, where an authentic connection is where you're seen, heard, and belong. And that, as we've discussed over previous episodes, requires us to be vulnerable. And I think that's a key there in terms of connection and casual sex, or connection and sex, full stop, casual or otherwise.
Right. Okay. So the way that I would define casual sex is sex for the sole purpose of getting off, and therefore, by definition, I wouldn't personally engage in casual sex for the intention of connecting. But that's me having done the work that I've done. Um, I would say maybe 10 years ago, that is exactly what I was trying to do. I was looking for a connection through casual sex, and in my experience, it didn't work so well.
Right. Discuss.
So the way that I would define the casual sex part is, casual sex is, I see you walking down the street, we make eyes, or I see you at the gym, we make eyes, we're looking at each other, we're kind of taking off each other's clothes with our eyes. You know that look that gay guys give, that admiring gaze. And then if the circumstance allows it, find somewhere to make it happen and make it happen. More common ways to do it these days is on Grindr or Scruff or whatever app you're on. You find someone, you see the square, message them, got any pics, top or bottom, what are you into, where are you, come over. Here's my address.
So is that connection though?
Well, I mean, I would say in a way it is. I mean, you're connecting somewhat, but I think the way that the kind of connection that we want as humans, as whether we're gay or straight or male or female or whatever age we are, I think the kind of connections we actually yearn for don't necessarily come in that way. They can, but my experience was that when I was using casual sex as a means to connect, I was left very disappointed. I would have great sex. The orgasm was fantastic. I'd feel relieved in the moment. But then after the elation of that orgasm wore off, and I was, going home or whatever it was, I felt regret. Not dirty, not anything like that, but it was more like regret, because deep down, I mean, I wish I knew this at the time. Looking back, deep down, I wanted him to stay. I wanted him to ask me to stay. I wanted to watch some Netflix after. I wanted to cuddle after. But the nature of what I was going for was, there was no cuddling and Netflix after. It was like, okay, I need to get off. You need to get off. You fit the match that I'm looking for. Very transactional, and then goodbye. And so I was subconsciously wanting more, yet going about it the wrong way. And I think a lot of people do this. A lot of my clients do this. And when we become aware of it, then you can start to actually look for the connections that you want, if that's what you want, in ways that are more useful, shall we say, maybe more effective.
I think that's the key. And this is something that you said in your blog post that you published back in 2019 on your site, and then I republished yesterday on my site. And listener and viewer, there's a link in the episode description to that, which looks at casual sex and the pros and cons of gay sex. I don't want to spoil it, but that point about knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it is absolutely critical. Because if you are looking for, like the sex plus the cuddle plus the Netflix after, maybe not. You're not going to get that. But if you're looking for, just the sex, tick, you're going to get that.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is, when you read the blog post, there's sort of two camps, pros and cons. And I would say the pros is exactly what you said. You know, there's a lot of people out there who, if you're someone who doesn't require an emotional connection to have sex, if sex can be very transactional for you, then by all means, it can be a very useful and very efficient way to get the deed done and not have a lot of frills around it. So, you know, if you're dating, you have to, is he going to text me back? Is there a second date? All this other like rigmarole that goes with it. Sometimes you just want to get off. Like you had a hard day at work, you have stuff to do at night, you have a window of opportunity, like let's just get it done. And it's very efficient and if that's for you, right? And that's the thing. If you require an emotional connection, then you're probably going to be left feeling not great after the orgasm wears off. And that's how I can judge it. That's my sort of, that's how I know if I'm in the right place or not. After that orgasm wears off, assuming the hookup was fine, how do I feel? And I check in with myself. And I say, okay, Michael, how do I feel right now? Am I satisfied, happy, like great, got the deed done, check it off my list, go home, go to bed? Or do I feel lacking in some way? Do I feel a regret at all? Do I feel even more lonely, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. I feel even more lonely after the hookup.
Yeah. And I think that's critical, that level of self-awareness, that we can look for connection in not necessarily all the wrong places, but in ways that don't serve us. And I think that's actually a key component of the mystery of loneliness. It's because loneliness feels and presents like so many other things, rather than the emojis that we see when we type in lonely on a chat app. You know, loneliness, you know, how do you define that, you know, the thoughts and feelings of loneliness? It's pretty much only in retrospect that you can go, oh, actually all these behaviors, all these thoughts and feelings that I had, you know, can be summarized by saying that they're lonely.
And that's why I love the work that you do,
Sorry,
Phil.
just a dramatic pause there. Can you hear the vacuum cleaner going on in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right. the joys of living in a share house right now, sort of being homeless between countries during the pandemic.
And still producing top quality content.
There we go. So I'm going to edit that out, except, you know, you viewer on YouTube get to hear that. That's going to be covered by like the sound of the coffee shop in the background. But yeah, I'm like, okay. It's like, turn it off. Vacuum some other time. So yeah, and someone's sleeping after doing a night shift now in like a room away, and I'm like, and you vacuuming. Okay.
Yeah, I heard something. I didn't know what it was, but I'm like, it's definitely not my side because it's quiet here.
Yeah. No, vacuum. All right. So and because I've got like noise cancelling headphones on, I can hear it. So it must be like a jet plane going on.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Okay, good. Okay. So back to it, and yeah. So those and as the prompt, the thoughts and feelings of loneliness, only in retrospect that we. And you were going to say something awesome about my work.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I think that because if you live in a big city or somewhere where sex is really easy to get, I think a lot of the times what I've seen, and this was also my experience, is because sex is so easy, it's almost like, oh, well, obviously that's the way that we connect with people, kind of forgetting that there are other ways to do it. And what happens though is, you know, there's a difference between connection and something that's sort of meant to be ephemeral by nature. Like a casual hookup, by definition, is supposed to be casual, quick, gets the deed done. And I think what happens is we get confused with pleasure and happiness. and we get confused with, pleasure and connection is in like you and I physically connecting versus that more emotional connection that requires that vulnerability that you were just talking about. And there's a difference there. And I think using casual sex to get one, it could happen. Don't get me wrong. I know people who have met their partners through a hookup.
Yeah.
But is it the most effective way?
Yeah. I think, it is a way, without doubt, of, meeting people. And I've had friends who have said that, they've made, met their best friend after they'd had sex. After a hookup, and I guess it kind of demystifies some of the some aspects of someone else by having sex first. It's like, all right, well, I know that about you now. It's almost, I don't know if you had it in Canada, but a few years ago on Australian TV late at night was this show called Dating Naked. Basically, couples are, set up on blind dates and they go on these dates naked. The whole premise, apart from, just, the perv factor, was that there's nothing to hide. So actually, you get more real connection. So it was TV, so it's hard to know how things went in the editing and things like that. But I guess it goes some way to demystifying who someone is, and whether or not there is an avenue for further connection after that.
Right. And with a casual hookup, I would say you would go into it with the intention of there not being a possibility for another one. And a lot of this goes into definitions, right? So I like to think of it as a casual hookup can be something like a one-time anonymous situation where you don't even exchange names or words for that matter. It could be a quick hookup like a Grindr or, a Scruff or whatever dating app hookup. But sometimes it could turn into more. So you could hook up with somebody, have a great time and say, hey, you want to do this again? And, you could offer, I haven't done this. I said to somebody like, hey, that was really fun. Like, I'd like to do this again. Do you want to exchange numbers? And they've been like, no, I'm out. Like either they have a boyfriend and they're not supposed to be doing what they're doing, or they're in the closet and again, not interested, or whatever reasons they have, or they just got what they wanted and they want out. So I would say in that case, it's not their fault. Like that is a risk that I kind of took, saying, hey, do you want to do this again? And they said no. I wouldn't take that rejection personally today. Before I would take it personally and say there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. He didn't like it. I was terrible, whatever. But now I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, he has the full right to say no because this was never meant to be that in the first place.
That's something I want to explore. That whole feeling of, the questioning your own worthiness because a stranger, essentially, might not physically be a stranger to you, but someone who's a mental and emotional stranger to you has said no. Could that be how do you think that fuels the feelings of shame after a hookup that some guys might feel?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it absolutely could fuel that feeling of shame, especially if you haven't done that inner work dealing with your own shame and your own triggers. When you know your triggers, that could still happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but you can see it happening. Like, oh, okay, I'm getting my shame triggers going off. Like, that incident is like rubbing salt in the wound, but then it's not necessarily anyone's fault. It just is what it is. But I think people who haven't done that work, they take it very personally, any kind of rejection, but including that rejection.
Yeah.
And it certainly absolutely fuels the shame response, 100%.
Yeah. And I guess, one of the things about connection that connection absolutely requires is vulnerability. And conceivably, that that question, this was fun, do you want to do it again? That's a moment of vulnerability, because you could be saying that, moments, after orgasm, and lying there naked, or however it is, and they're like, no. And there you are, having, not only you could feel like a review on your sexual performance, but also like feel that I'm a terrible person, I'm bad at sex, I'm like why aren't I lovable, all the way down that shame spiral.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that's common. I mean, it still can happen, but I think when it's a casual sex situation, you shouldn't be surprised. Personally, there's that saying that I love: everybody loves you when they're about to come. And during
That needs to be
in the
on a
lead up
throw
to
pillow or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the lead up, there's so much emotion, and like you can totally have that if you want to have a conversation in the throes of an orgasm. But I've had people be like, oh, say things when they're about to come, and then afterwards they're like, okay, peace out, bye, right?
Yeah.
And then it triggers that, like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like he liked me a minute ago. It's like nothing happened with me. He just had an orgasm. It's all chemicals in the brain. Nothing happened with me.
Yeah. How is that then? This is something I wanted to talk to you about, and listener, if you've got any feedback, send me an email, or to connect at thelonelinessguy.com, and I can share it with Michael, and we can have a chat with you by email if you've got questions for us, or you could do it the modern way on social media, on Instagram or on Facebook, Twitter. Not really on Twitter so much, but when it does, I was about to say when it comes to, but actually COMES. So when we get to that, there we go. That's how I can work around that linguistically. When we get to that point about that vulnerability and that need for connection, I want to go to that point in the interaction where, on Grindr, at the gym, the aisle at the supermarket, looking at bananas or eggplants, at the supermarket, and raising an eyebrow to the hot guy who's, feeling kiwi fruit or something like that. And buying way more kiwi fruit than one person needs in their trolley, kind of thing. I'm just got this mental image that I'm going with. But when we get to that point, and then it's there's those thoughts and feelings racing of like the possibility, and that this is going to be good. I want to just look at that point and about how it feels when we are chosen, when we cock an eyebrow, or do the whole how about it kind of vibe thing, and the other person says yes, or they come to us first and do the do it to us, and you're a bit of all right. I've got 15 minutes free. How about you? And how can that feeling of being chosen feel like acceptance in the greater scheme of things? Do you get my point?
Yeah, I think that what you're describing isn't actual acceptance. I think it is external validation that feels like acceptance. It's a disguise. what you've just described, I guess that attention, that if you're talking about the initial attention, the gazing, the looking, I don't know if I would call that acceptance. I would call that acknowledgement
Right.
and validation, like validation from someone else that you exist, which is lovely. Of course, we're social creatures. We need to have that. There's nothing wrong with that per se. I think though it's important that our own sense of self-worth and our own sense of worthiness doesn't come solely from that method, because that'll come just as quick as it goes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can have that interaction. It feels great, but then when you put all your eggs in that one basket and you become attached to that external validation as your means of feeling accepted and loved and worthy and connection, it's not going to go well, because you're putting all those eggs in a basket that is not your own to fill.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that it's bad. Of course, we all love external validation, but it's kind of like we need to turn down that sometimes and remember that while it's always nice, we can't hinge our entire self-concept on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's really critical in terms of the mind of a lonely gay man at whatever age, where that when you're lonely, when you are, thinking the thoughts, feeling the feelings of loneliness, it can be really energizing. That's not the right word that I want to go with there, but it's really something to be.
Feels good.
Yeah, it's really something to be seen and be acknowledged, valued for something, because the thoughts and feelings of loneliness kind of, put a foggy haze, a lens of fog over your perception of the world. And when someone can cut through that and go, like, you've got a great chest, your abs are amazing, what an ass, like, I love your legs, oh my God, your arms are the best, like, I get this all the time on social media, oh my God, your beard. It's like, thank you. I like my beard. That you like it is good too. Right? But when you're sort of aware of your loneliness, or even when you're not aware of your loneliness, that need for like seeking validation because you're not giving it to yourself.
Right.
You're not connected to yourself. So you look to fill that need for connection, as you say, and it's a brilliant point. You're looking for that validation. You're looking for that to come from outside of you.
Yeah.
And that can only be done to a certain extent.
Yeah. And let me tell you, because I was the guy, I did all of it, and it is exhausting. It never ends, because you're constantly you're living your life trying to impress others in any number of ways. I mean, there's so many ways that we try to do this, and it stems in like a lot of perfectionism and people pleasing, and you're always looking for that next hit of validation. And it, like I said, it doesn't last long. It's not lasting. You get the attention. This is how you know you're in it, because you get it. Like you get the guy you wanted, and then once it's over, it's gone, and you're off to the next one.
Yeah.
And that's sort of one of the reasons, the way, as you were talking about it, what I thought of was, when it comes to loneliness, when you're using external validation to feel better about that loneliness, whether you know it or not, it's like you have a broken arm, and the external validation is someone like putting a Band-Aid on your finger. So yeah, it's going to feel temporarily better. Sure. And like, oh yay, I feel better. But girl, your arm is still broken. Like you're treating the symptom, not the cause. And so you just keep putting all these Band-Aids on your arm. Meanwhile, no one is actually sitting there going into your arm and like fixing it. I'm not a doctor, clearly.
Do not take medical advice from us, listener, but it's a great point. And I feel, as I'm going to use that for the promo. That is awesome. That's awesome right there, because it's so true. It's so true the need for validation must come from internally and accepting that you are who you are. This is getting remarkably deep, isn't it? Because this is a topic that we see in our communities globally, and it's almost like a cornerstone of what it means to be a gay man. To be a gay man is to have gay sex, and to have an attraction, a physical, mental, and emotional attraction to men, right? So when we do get that through sex, casual or otherwise, it's part of who we are. And it's so prevalent, for obvious reasons that it's so prevalent, as I just said. But when we're when we forget that we are a subject to the human condition, like every other human, and we're throwing that band-aid on it, when we're throwing something that is not treating the cause and not even acknowledging the symptoms,
right?
Because this acknowledging the broken arm / acknowledging loneliness is a sign of potentially being a defective human.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to that stigma of loneliness that I spoke with on the episode with Matt Lancet, all about the stigma of loneliness, is about being a failed human, the judgment that comes with that, the self-judgment, the external judgment and things. And so when we are keenly aware, I'm getting to a point here, when we are keenly aware of the judgment that we have within ourselves, about the horrible internal narrative that we have about ourselves, about, the fact that, I don't know, speaking personally here, but, I don't like my feet. There's a very good reason that they're at the other end of my body and I don't have to have that much to do with them. But you know what? I can't do anything about them. But, I could be obsessed with how I don't like my feet. But my feet serve me. I can run, I can walk. They're very good at what they do in, getting me through life. But if someone goes, oh my, your feet are amazing. By the way, viewer, listener, I'm not going to be starting to take photos of my feet. Not doing that. And sending that around. No. It is. If there are parts about myself, if there are parts about ourselves that we don't like, and then someone comes up and goes, no, it doesn't matter. I think you're great anyway. It's like, oh, right. And the lonely mind can use that as like someone throwing a ring off a ship. Like you've fallen overboard, the ship of society is sailing on, and someone sees you and throws a life ring off overboard to help save you. And you can clutch onto that like nothing else. So if you're getting validation, if you work out and you've got like an amazing body and you're on Grindr and you're getting those, or Instagram, and you're getting the validation through all those likes, that could be something that, is that an attempt to, pun intended, to fill that hole?
Right? Yes.
That mental and emotional hole, mental and emotional holes cannot be filled through physical only.
I think the other thing to add to that, and for the viewer and listener who doesn't know me, can I just plug myself very quickly? I'm a coach and I coach gay men. And so 90% of my clients are gay men between the ages, I'm going to say 20 and 50. So here's what I've noticed, Phil, to that point. The people who are doing a very good job of external validation, like they got all the likes, they got all the fans, they have their so-called the pretty boys, and they have the body and whatever. The funny thing with them is, at the end of the day, they, for all the validation they get deep down, if they don't believe it, it goes in one ear, and then out the other eventually. Like, it feels good and they sort of grab onto it. But again, like I was saying before, they just need more. It doesn't last. Whereas when you're getting that external validation, but you believe it yourself, that feeling is still good, but it lasts longer because you believe it. And this is what I've noticed with my clients. They're the ones who, for all intents and purposes, by society standards, would be considered attractive and successful, and they get all the guys and everything. You can give them 1,000 compliments, but deep down, that inner shame will not allow them to keep that compliment.
Yeah. That completely resonates with me. And I used to, personally, I used to believe that was what society expected me to do. And, you know, growing up Australian, in Australia, that, you know, with the omnipresent tall poppy syndrome, where you're allowed to be good, but you're not allowed to say that you're good, you're not allowed to talk about yourself. And if someone gives you a compliment, the expectation is that we are just to dismiss it. Go, nah, it's nothing. Nah, you know, anyone could do it, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, to do anything else is like a societal sin. It's not social death, but, you know, we fear someone going, oh, he's got a big head. Like, you know, he's up himself, you know, he's got tickets and stuff. And so that's what I thought was meant to, you know, I was meant to do. And so any kind of compliment, you know, about anything that I receive is like, it's nothing. After a little while, you just like with that seeping into your soul, it ends up like it feels like it takes so much courage and daring and I guess balls to accept a compliment and go, yeah, actually, I did do that really well. I'm proud of myself too. Because you're not all really, when it comes to that point, you're not saying I'm proud of myself to big note yourself to someone else. It's like you're saying you're verbalizing to yourself, to the internal critic within you, or you know, that internal drive that, yeah, I'm allowed to be proud of myself for doing that. I worked hard, I studied, I exercised, and, you know, I ran that marathon, not because I got out of bed on a Sunday morning and decided, yeah, today's a good day to run a marathon. It's like, no, I trained for you know, 6 months. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, and that I'm proud of myself goes a long way. I would say further, when you mean it, when you say it and you mean it, it goes a longer way than 10 people saying I'm proud of you. Or when they say I'm proud of you and you are already proud of yourself, those 10 I'm proud of yous are just amplified and they stick because it is acknowledgement of something you already know, not trying to fill a hole that you'll never fill.
Yeah. No matter how many, you know, hookups you have.
Right.
Yeah. This is what I really wanted to get into in this chat and over coffee with you, me and the listener and the viewer on YouTube. It's because it's a topic that we can all resonate with. Mm-hmm. And, you know, but when, like so much in life and like so much when it comes to loneliness and the need for authentic connection, simply scratching a little bit below the surface identifies what can be really driving our thoughts and behaviors there. And, you know, I think that need for validation beyond the physical act. You know, sex is sex, is sex, is sex, is sex. It's allowed to be as well. And as you say, Michael, you know, our approach to it depends. so long as we're aware. And if we are aware that we are using casual sex, you know, as that band-aid on our broken arm, you know, that broken arm, as you say, is not going to get, I forget exactly how you said it, but, you know, that broken arm is not going to get fixed. Like it's essentially, you know, putting a band-aid over the boo-boo, and going, there you go, you know, but look at you, it's a lovely band-aid, you know, on that hand, but really, you know, your arm's bleeding.
Right. And it needs a deeper treatment, and that would take a longer time to resolve. And one of the ways that you would do that is looking at the cause. Simply ask yourself why.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? Why? Like sometimes it's as easy as I just want to get off and I got to get back to work.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at these days. I got lots of stuff to do. I just need this to happen so I can focus on my work. But for other people, you know, ask why? Why do I want this? Is it because I'm horny, or is there more going on here? And be honest with yourself. Even if you don't tell me or tell someone else, just be honest with yourself in the answer. My story was that when I did the why, there was a lot of loneliness going on. I think I told this story last time for the last podcast, but we did that. Very quickly, I had a breakup.
Please.
And I was trying to, I was very upset about the breakup. My ex had broken up with me, and I just thought, okay, well, I'm just going to go out and have sex with the rest of the city because I can, and I'm hot, and I'm young, and blah, 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 blah. And I did. And every time it was like one step forward, which is like the Band-Aid. And then in the aftermath, it was 2 steps back emotionally. Because I wanted to miss him even more. At the end of the day, really deep down, if I asked myself truly, I could have had sex with the hottest people in the city, but all I really wanted was to cuddle at home with my boyfriend and like watch Netflix and eat popcorn.
Yeah.
So when I admitted that to myself, it was very hard to admit that because I was very proud and there's a lot of ego there. But when I admitted that to myself, I had a good cry and it became a lot more clear. The dots connected.
Yeah.
It's just the dots connected. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, thank you for sharing that. For me, I know that for me, sex is more than the physical. And so I did write this in a blog post called "What Kind of Gay Am I?" And so when I separated, my marriage ended, my heterosexual relationship ended. I do recall going, oh, this is exciting. You know, I don't need to feel guilty or wrong by, you know, looking at the guy coming towards me and, you know, having that internal dialogue going, internal monologue, saying, you know, oh, he's hot. No, God, that's wrong. That's wrong. You know, now I'm just like, oh, you know, he's hot. And, you know, he can walk by. But I knew that I needed to, I knew me. I knew me, and I guess I felt very ready to come out officially. And so, but I remember thinking, how do I know a guy's gay? And I don't know, Michael, if you ever played The Sims, or if the listener is and viewer is familiar with The Sims, but the person, the character that you're controlling, it's like this rotating green diamond on their head. And, you know, I'm like, just need that. And you know, that would be great. That would just be really helpful because I need to meet gay men. And I thought, right. And so, you know, I went on to Grindr, and that was just a phenomenal example of the richness of humanity right there on Grindr. And you know, Wellington's not huge. New Zealand's not huge either, and as fresh meat on Grindr got lots of attention, and it is like, okay, that's nice, but you know that validation, you know, I was basking in that warm glow within me about, you know, I've just done something brave and I'm being me and I'm proud of me for that. The validation was lovely. You know, it was lovely to feel seen. It was lovely to, you know, to feel, you know, welcomed into the community through Grindr. But you know, it was lovely. But I knew me after having done a shitload of work within myself over years. I knew me that if I was to engage in, you know, anonymous sex in a random hookup, that would not be me. And so I had a rule, and I mentioned this to you, Michael, in a conversation that we had this past weekend. Is that, you know, I would not send dick pics. You know, and I think I had on one of my profiles, like, I will not send photos that I wouldn't want my mum to see. And you know, that there's a whole range of reasons for that, like, you know, the work that I do, etc. Like, you know, once photos are out there, they're out there. You've got no control over them. And yeah, so I'm very careful with, not careful, mindful about what pictures I put out there. But also the critical thing was this, is that, you know, I will, you know, we're going to have a coffee, we're going to have a drink, we're going to have a beer or a wine or whatever it is before, you know, I need to have connection with you. Like, you could have a great body, but if I don't feel that I can actually have a chat with you, if I don't feel that I you know, don't see you as another human, then that's not going to work for me. And put it out there. I put it out there very clearly in chats, because, you know, you can put it on your Grindr profile all you want. People, you know, other guys aren't going to read it. Some read it, other guys don't. But was maintaining that alignment, as you said in your fantastic blog post on the pros and cons of casual sex. That for me was being in alignment with who I am.
Yes, and can I add something to this? I think for the viewer and the listener, it's very important. I think gay culture, again, depending on where you live and how old you are and sort of where your attentions are in the gay culture world, we have a tendency to romanticize this casual sex culture. And for the record, I love it. I'm a complete pro, like, not a pro. I'm pro casual sex.
Right. As a, you know, as opposed to con, like, not a professional. Right. Yeah.
I fully support it, and I think it's great as long as you are aligned with your intentions and your expectations.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that, I think a lot of the culture in the media that we see day to day will kind of romanticize this casual sex part of our culture, and it might lead people to think that that they're not doing it right, or that something's wrong with them for being or for requiring that emotional connection. But there's no right or wrong way. There's no, I mean, the irony about my blog post is that there's no right or wrong. It's a matter of what works for you. So I would say a lot of the people that I talk to feel like, oh, part of being gay is we have to just have this casual sex and we have to all be very okay with it. But that's not necessarily the case. And it's okay if you require an emotional connection. That's fine. That's a wonderful, beautiful thing. And nothing is wrong. It does not mean that you're not a good gay man. It does not mean that you still can't enjoy fabulous, wonderful gay sex. It just means you need to have an emotional connection, and that's fine. There's so many people out there who have that. And the funny thing with gay culture is, I find it, at least with the guys that I talk to, they're more ashamed to admit that they need or that they prefer the emotional connection, and they're willing to pretend that they don't, play it cool, even though deep down it is their preference that they have that connection, and they just kind of go with the flow because that's what everybody else is doing. And I'm like, if we all just talked about this, we'd all be a lot happier with what we do. The people who can do the casual sex thing and be transactional will do it and it'll be fine. And then the people who want the emotional connection will go on dates and go for coffee and have a beer, whatever that may be. So I think that's important to note your story, and then to the listener and viewer to recognize that that is very common. It is very, very common.
Yeah, yeah, because it's such a good point. That's such a good point. And, you know, it goes to the very heart of the thoughts and feelings of loneliness. When we think that everyone else is doing stuff,
Yeah.
but because we don't actually talk about it,
Yeah.
because, you know, on topic of casual sex, or topic of, I don't know, you know, people who like cornflakes for breakfast, as opposed to, you know, someone who wants to eat Cocoa Pops or something like that. I don't know. But, you know, we presume in our own heads, and we craft so many stories in our own minds about how we are the only one in the world, or, you know, not necessarily in the world, not necessarily, you know, don't want to be, you know, that dramatic, but, you know, in our own circles of people we know, that we are the only person who is thinking these thoughts and feelings, who, you know, who happens to prefer, I don't know, one thing, and we think that everyone else is doing another, and we just sort of can
Right.
convince ourselves that we like doing the other thing, because it's like, otherwise we don't, you know, we won't be accepted.
Right.
We won't fit in. And there are so many topics in this that I will be writing on and speaking on, no doubt with you too, Michael, in future episodes, about, you know, how it can be a huge act of defiance, how it can feel like a huge act of defiance to simply, and I say simply, to simply be ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And know who we are, the good, the bad, the light, the dark, and love who we are. And then put that out into the world, knowing that we're going to, like, agree with some people, we're going to disagree with some people, but, you know, we will attract the type of people who we then need to attract. And that does make me sound like an Instagram philosopher, and I don't want to do that, but it is really, it's true. When you put you into the world, and whether that you into the world is at work, within your friends, within your family, within your communities, online, in the real world, I think the distinction between the online and the real world is kind of blurring a lot more as we progress. But it's really important that in every situation that you are you. But that's the rub. Working out who you are
Right.
is the fun / hard / life's work.
I was gonna say fun. I think now it's fun, but I think for a lot of people it's not, because, you know, they're, like you said, you have to acknowledge and love the good and the bad. I don't like those terms, but the light and the dark, shall we say.
Yeah.
And that could be very hard to acknowledge that within yourself. Like, to acknowledge, I'll speak for me personally, like to acknowledge my, you know, jealousy. You know, there's a big part of me that was very jealous, competitive, and, you know, it's there when I see it. I'm like, oh, here comes my competition, my jealous side.
Yeah.
Or insecure, that's another one. I mean, you know, definitely a lot of insecurity, and then learning to still, I mean, love is sometimes love, you can't go from 0 to 100, but acknowledging it, learning to be okay with it, and then eventually loving yourself for all of it.
Yeah.
The whole pile of you. But that is your life's work. I think that is what we're here for. And that is when we start going on that journey, I think that's when magic happens, in terms of, not to get too woo-woo on everyone, but I think that's when things start to happen and people start to show up in your life that you really need to help your evolution and growth.
Including you for me, I have to say, in wrapping this up. Like it really is, like I'm just so pleased. Like that sounds like a really, like a dismissive way of saying it. I'm so pleased. But just to have you and other great men in my corner who want me to be me, want me to be more me in the world, who won't accept the bullshit that I'm telling myself, who won't let me play small, won't settle for mediocre. That has been like one of the most beautiful aspects of my life now, which only happened when I accepted that I was lonely. When I accepted that I needed real connection in my life. And of course, I didn't have the words for it back then. Like, I sound eloquent about it now, and I'm like, well, this is what's going on. I had no idea. I had no idea. I didn't even accept the fact for ages, such a long time, that I was lonely. It was only when everything else had been worked through and dismissed, and I'm like, fuck, I am lonely. Of course, I don't want to say that it's it rolls off the tongue easily now. But that's years ago, like, getting to 4 or 5 years ago now. There's been a lot of work on that. But looking back in the review mirror of my life right now, that the type of real, authentic connection that I need in my life only came from when I accepted the fact that I was lonely, and am still prone to feeling lonely too.
Yeah. I think that you bring up a very good point about not having the language, and that, there's so much to be said around that, because...
And there will be.
Yeah.
In future content.
Absolutely, because I would never have described myself then as lonely. I have a great family, loving family, lots of friends. Yet that's what was happening at the time. I was extremely lonely. But if you asked me that, if you'd come to me and said, oh, are you lonely? I'm like, no, absolutely not. Because in my mind, loneliness was akin to solitude.
Yeah.
And those are not necessarily the same. You could be alone in solitude and not feel lonely, or you can sometimes. But for me, I was like, oh no, I have all these friends, and which is true. I had a lot of support, but I still felt deeply lonely.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we get in trouble when it comes to loneliness. We don't recognize it because we think it means physically alone.
Yeah. 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 And I think, when it comes to something like casual sex, that, almost like, I'm stuck on this, drowning person life ring tossing metaphor here, but a drowning people, this is going back years ago from when I did life-saving training. Drowning people make no noise. And the other thing is, so, when if someone's still making noise, they're not close to drowning. But drowning people make no noise, and a drowning person, when they're getting close to, I think it's almost a reflex, they start climbing a ladder in the water, and tiring themselves out more but trying to climb out of where they are, but there's nothing to hold on to, obviously. And so not feeling that you have the words to express it is akin to me of climbing that ladder. And by doing more of something that helped get you connection, or that validation, which kind of feels like connection, but it's not, doing more of that, whether that validation comes through casual sex, that validation comes through work, that validation comes through likes on social media, or community deeds, or organizing things like within your family, or whatever. If that validation comes from there, and you've gotten it in the past and you just go to do more, you're climbing a ladder. You're climbing a ladder, and you're not going to get out of your loneliness by doing more of the same.
Yeah.
You get out of your loneliness when you stop climbing your ladder and go, I'm stuck. Stop climbing your fake ladder and get a real ladder.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave that whole, drowning thing alone from now on. Yeah. Apparently I need to go for a swim.
No, I don't think you should now after that.
In a pool with a shallow bottom, but not dive into it, because that's bad.
Right.
So, maybe not. I shouldn't. So, Michael, refresh our memory again as we wrap this up. Where can we find you beyond, as I post this on social media, I will be tagging the absolute shit out of you.
Great. I love being tagged. Okay. You can find me on the interweb, as always.
Yep.
www.wellismo.com. WELLISMO.com. That's my site. And then, since you're going to tag me, I will, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube are the social platforms I'm on. I think I have a Twitter too, but I'm not really active on it. Instagram for sure. That's where I like to have my most fun. I do a lot of my content on Instagram. I'm located in Toronto, Canada. So if there's any other Canadians out there, specifically Toronto, we can even have an in-person shout out, as long as that's allowed in this environment. And that's where people can find me.
Thank you so very much once again for joining us. You will be a frequent, as I said at the end of the first episode that you were on, you will be a very frequent guest, because we just have the best chats, and I love having a chat with the listener and the viewer over coffee. Couple of things before we finish up. Michael, you've been very generous. You have said that, earlier in this chat, that you do coaching work for specializing in gay men, and you have an exclusive offer for the audience of The Loneliness Guy to access your services. And listener/viewer, I'll be putting a link to Michael's page on my site, where you can then go through onto his site and engage his services. But Michael, thank you so much for offering that.
Yes, thank you. And if you are a listener viewer and you want to get a little bit more of this, and you've just been introduced to me, then yes, by all means, find me through Phil's site. Let me know you're a friend of Phil, and we will get you all set up with a cute little something special. Sorry, I'm on the topic. Casual sex is one of my favorite topics, so we can talk about this all day.
It's a cute little something special.
It's a little something special. It's a little surprise.
Got to quote that. Go get a cute little something special from Michael over at Wellismo. And
a VIP special.
Wow. Oh, intriguing. There's layer upon layer of mystery and intrigue on that. And then the other thing, listener, before we wrap this coffee up, I do want to say, I am on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Pinterest and YouTube. Links are on that from my website, but generally it's at The Loneliness Guy. And I do have a site, and this is something that Michael and I were talking about it, that, you know, you can't work through. Or you can try to work through the thoughts and feelings of loneliness alone and in the privacy of your own head. That's not the point. You miss the point of thoughts and feelings of loneliness as nature intended them when you do things alone. The whole point of the thoughts and feelings of loneliness is for you to get the type of connection you need to authentically connect with yourself, with those you love most, and your communities. I have a site for premium subscribers, so that's paid premium subscribers only to The Loneliness Guy, and have a page on or a group on Facebook where you can access for $9.95 Australian a month, which is about $7 US, maybe $6.50 US a month now. And that is a place, and Michael is in that group too, where you can come and talk about your experience of loneliness, your thoughts, your feelings of loneliness. Come get support from me, from Michael, from other gay men who are all working through the thoughts and feelings of loneliness themselves and are putting themselves into the world in a real and authentic way. It's inspiring, and I would love to have you here. So if you want, there's a link in the episode description, thelonelinessguy.com/subscribe is how you access that to become a premium subscriber of The Loneliness Guy. Michael, as always, love and appreciate your work and you and your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been great, and I look forward to the next one already.
Yeah. Well, there will be. Let's do it again. Yeah. Thank you for coming and connecting over coffee with The Loneliness Guy.
Thank you.
All right. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and viewer, thank you so much for sitting all the way through that.
Yes.
Vacuuming it all. Yeah. So thank you.
They get the behind the scenes goodies, the viewers who's watching us now.
I know. I'm not quite sure if that's something like a selling point. Come and hear the vacuuming.
I don't know. I thought it was a jet plane, but I'm happy you heard it too, because I was like, I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah. So. No, you the consummate pro. Yeah. All right, I better jump off.
Okay.
But thank you so much. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yes.
All right, no worries. And thank you, viewer. We'll see you next time too.
Bye, viewer. See you on YouTube.
All right. Thanks, Michael. See you later.
Bye-bye.